Good morning. Looks like we don't have anyone in the waiting room, so we are probably good to go. Welcome to week 3 out of 5, prepping for the AP. So we're moving along, and we're already in a week where we're at units 4 and 5. So I'm sure you can kind of predict that between this week and next week, we will wrap things up as far as review goes, and then we'll spend our last week doing one last, drive of lots and lots of FRQs and answering any last minute questions. And there's a couple practice apps that I've found where it kind of simulates like what the prompts will look like on the screen for you. And you can kind of go through and just kind of test the prompts. So we'll do that in the last week as well. I'll talk about this more in class time this week on Tuesday and Thursday, but I did get confirmation finally from College Board on everyone that's registered for the exam and has received their information for taking it at home. So we're good there. And yeah, we're just going to move on forward. As you may have read in our email, or you got another email from school and your parents got it too, obviously we are entering a new grading policy. So I explained it a little in my email, and I'll explain it more in your class time this week, but it doesn't really affect us too much because we are already, as AP students that are driven by academia and motivated to do well in our classes. So it really is not going to affect you much. But please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them moving forward. Okay, FRQs. I will pop our FRQ up on the screen so that you can copy it down sort of for a second. You will notice, especially in unit 4 and 5, that we get a lot more diagrams than graphs or charts. So looking at some of these crazy cellular signaling pathways over the next few days, don't feel like you need to copy it down exactly when we're doing practice FRQs. You can take screenshots if you want, or take a picture with your phone, but obviously don't go overboard trying to draw the whole pathway. I'll put it back up on the screen when it's time for you to solve it. And we'll just do a quick note-taking session before I let you jump into it. Alrighty, here we go. So, where'd you go, buddy? There you are. All right, so it's a short FRQ, and we're just basically describing what you see here. It says the figure above represents a generalized hormone signaling pathway. Briefly explain the role of each numbered step in regulating target gene expression. So I would just jot down what it wants you to do. So where it says number 8 there, go ahead and jot that down, and maybe a really rough sketch of the diagram. But again, I'll pop this back up for when you're solving, so don't worry about that. And you can also take a picture or screenshot if you need to. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and just jot down a few notes first before you jump in, and then I'll give you your 15 minutes to solve it. I don't think you'll, don't worry, it wasn't my pencil holder. I don't think you'll need 15 minutes to solve this one, but I can give you that if you need it. And the only thing it asked us to do today, what is it? Anyone see it? It's just our one task word.
Explain.
Yep, that's it. Just explain. Let's see. I think this is number 2 in our grouping of FRQs, but that doesn't, you don't need to know that. Okay, yeah. So thank you, Sadie. All we need to do today is explain, and they even tell us to briefly explain. So they want us to be concise. Why? Because it's a short FRQ. We only get 15 minutes. There are 3 steps. So max 15 minutes per step. I'm sorry, 5 minutes per step. But that's ludicrous. This should take you maybe 2 minutes per step, right? Briefly explain. And explain means, and we've done this one before, but we'll write it again, to make plain for anyone, for a little kid, for your grandma, so that they can comprehend. So this is like 2 to 3 sentences max. And that's just, you know, if you really need to take the time to maybe define some science terms that you might want to use. Because we're trying to make it plain. So if you decide to use a word that's like transduction, a little kindergartner or your grandma is not going to know what that means. So this is one that you might want to define. Make it super plain and easy, because you could probably give a 1-word answer for each one of these steps, right? Because we know it, or we've memorized it, or whatever. We look at that picture, we automatically know what's happening in each step. But how can you make it super plain? How did the textbook, or Miss Bird, or myself, or some Khan Academy, how did it explain it to you? What were the words it used to help it make it very clear to you? So that then in the future you could just say a 1-word answer, transduction, or whatever. Make this really clear for your reader, right? So underline or highlight the step that you're focusing on. Right, in this case, I mean, again, you can format however you want for this at-home AP. So if drawing directly on the diagram seems better for you and more clear, that's totally fine. But if you're going to do that and you're going to use your own personal handwriting and not type it, just make sure that they can read it. This is about being super clear for your reader. They don't want to have to search for your answer. They don't want to have to squint to read your writing. They just want it to be super clear and see what you know. Okay, I'll shut up. That's pretty much all you have to do for this one. Just literally 2 to 3 sentences max, each of those steps. And I'll give you 15, but I'll check in about 7 or 8, because I think you might whip through this one. All right, just kind of checking in, seeing how we're doing. If you just want to give me like a hoot if you need more time. Xander's good, Sadie's good. All right, I'm not hearing any protests, so I'm guessing that maybe you are good to go. So we'll go ahead and just start discussing this one. Again, this one is pretty easy, right? As long as you know when you first look at that picture that you're looking at a picture of a cell and some kind of signaling pathway, then you're off to a good start. And maybe we had to look up some old vocabulary today. Maybe we had to remind ourselves of what certain things are called, or how best to describe that. Totally fine, great. That's what this time is for, so that you can get this nice FRQ written down, have your vocabulary all straightened out and how you want to use your words to explain what's happening in the picture or the diagram. And then day of, if this one takes you only 5 minutes because you remembered this FRQ, don't freak out, right? It's okay if you're done early. Great. And wouldn't that just be nice if your AP exam took you 20 minutes? An AP exam. Crazy. Okay. So let's just go ahead and talk about it. I'm going to put it back up on the screen, and let's just have a little chatty chat. What's going on in step 1? What do you see? What are some words you used? Anyone want to read us a sentence they wrote for step 1?
I said that step 1 is reception, which is when the ligand binds to a receptor on a cell and a signal is received.
Beautiful. Anyone else?
I said that step 1 is the initial trigger/stimulus that begins the process of producing a response.
Great. Anyone else before we talk about some of those? Okay. So both really good answers. Jayla, I liked that you used vocabulary like ligand and receptor, binding. Great, Michaelis, you said it was the first step in the signaling pathway or in the pathway that's going to produce a response to some stimulus. Great, stimulus, response, ligand, receptor. Those are all great vocabulary words. I would maybe include something about, that step 1 is happening in the plasma membrane at the surface of the cell. Yes, it's already labeled for us on the diagram, but it doesn't hurt to tell your reader again what they're looking at. They may not know that that gray line represents the outer edge of the cell. So on the surface of a cell, step 1 indicates that a stimulus is occurring, and a ligand binds to a receptor that is embedded in the plasma membrane in order to start a signaling response or something like that. So great. Again, just being thorough, being plain. Anytime you feel like use a word that maybe your reader or scorer or your grandma wouldn't quite understand, go ahead and define it. It's okay to write a little bit extra if you feel like it's going to make it more plain and simple for your reader. You don't want to go on and story tell, but if you have an extra sentence in there that just makes it much more clear, then that's fine. All right, let's do step 2.
I put that it's transduction or
Right.
the amplifying. Gosh, I can't talk today.
That's okay.
Amplifying of the signal through an enzyme cascade.
Great, great. Anyone else? Okay, no worries. So Sadie hit some good vocab there. Transduction is definitely a good title for step 2. She mentioned maybe amplification of the signal. It can be, recognition by the cell. You can say that the cell is now modifying molecules. You can talk about the phosphorylation cascade, any kind of cascade of molecules in general where molecules are passing around different atoms or electrons, anything like that where many molecules are going through changes in order to send this signal further towards the middle of the cell is great. And then if you've summed all of that up with the words signal transduction or just transduction, that's fantastic. Don't feel like you have to label these 3 particular molecule type shapes that they have in the diagram. 3 is completely inaccurate for transduction, right? We know that transduction involves millions of molecules, all passing and taking and reforming and shaping and amplifying and reducing as they move towards the center of the cell. So of course, any diagram like this is super, super simplified. So just don't get caught up in adding numbers to anything. But great, again, if you use some big terms, just make sure you explain them a little bit or define them for your readers so that it's super clear and plain and simple for them to understand. Highlighting the word or maybe underlining the word transduction for step 2. So far we have step 1, reception, step 2, transduction, fantastic, and then let's do step 3.
I said that step 3 represents gene transcription, which produces the desired response, such as the alteration of phenotype.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I said I said cellular response, and it normally results in a segment of DNA being transcribed.
Beautiful. Anyone else? So fantastic work, you guys. I hope that there's parts of these last couple of weeks where you're patting yourself on the back a little bit, or you're sending a huge thank you email to Miss Bird. Either way, because you guys are really, you're so strong in your science concepts, and I'd like to think that all of this was just out of your memory just now. Maybe you're looking it up too while we're doing it, and that's totally fine, right? That's what this time is for. But at least you know what you should be looking up, and you're doing it within 7 minutes. That's huge, that you know what to go after. So I'm really proud of your science knowledge this morning. But yeah, so Michaela and Jayla used great vocabulary. I forget which one, but one of you said cellular response as maybe the title for step 3. That's perfect. It could also be Transcription of the signal, that's totally great too, because transcription is what's going to happen. Maybe just make a note to yourself to add where this is happening for each of the steps. We already talked about step 1 happening at the surface of the cell. Step 2, we didn't say it, but just mentioning that it's in the cytoplasm. And then in step 3, inside the nucleus. Now the signal has made its way into the nucleus, whether it's because a loose phosphorus jumped in, or maybe a new molecule is able to squeeze in and start to signal to some kind of transcription factor. That transcription factor could be anything from a polymerase to some kind of ligand or a ligase. So it depends on what, you can list lots of different things just as examples. But the take-home message is that the DNA now is going to produce, like Michaela said, some kind of phenotypic response. So something that's going to change the cell, maybe produce a new hormone, produce a new protein, produce or stop producing something that it already has, eliminate it, whatever it may be. So that was delightful. And just being clear that this, anything that is going to happen for the cell has to be rooted from its DNA. And that's what the whole point of this signaling pathway is about, is to get to the DNA and change it in some way or turn it on in some way so that we get a change or a response to whatever the stimulus is. Fantastic. What else, guys? Questions about this one? This one's pretty easy, right? I mean, it's a short FRQ. Here we are. We're about 17, 18 minutes into our conversation on this one since you started, and we're totally done and we could have submitted. So I'm telling you that you have lots of science knowledge. Now you have to believe that you have lots of science knowledge and that you're writing it down and you're keeping it organized. And that's really what's going to make you successful on the day of. And then you got to just trust and believe in that, right? That's the biggest thing. I know I'm a broken record and you guys are like, oh my God, you say the same thing every time, but it's true. You have to believe that you know it and that you're right, and then submit it and feel confident in that, because that's what's going, to get you those 4s and 5s. Because you really do know it. Second guessing yourself, changing, erasing, I promise, you probably don't need to. And it's only gonna make things muckier and less concise. You probably had it right the first time, 9 times out of 10. What else? Questions about this? Questions about, I don't want to go to another one just because we only have about 14 minutes left today. So we can cut it early, but any other questions I can answer? Grading policy, what's coming up?
For the AP exam, do we have to know chi-square charts and stuff like that?
Ooh, great question. Yes, we do. That's going to be our in-class one between today and tomorrow. Or today and Thursday, I mean. So yes, we do have here's the thing. Do you have to know it? Yeah, you should be aware that it could be your question. But of course, the day of, you get one long FRQ, and it could be anything from freaking water molecules all the way to, non-Mendelian genetics. Like, it's just, you never know. So unfortunately, that's where they're getting us with this AP and really making sure that we're prepared for college, is that we literally have to study everything to only get one question on one topic. So kind of annoying, but yeah, we're going to go through the chi-squares today. Any other questions? All right. I guess I will see some of you in about an hour and a half at 10 o'clock for our period 2 Zoom. Otherwise, I will see a couple of you on Thursday instead. All right, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize, a couple of you, maybe not you guys, maybe I have one of Michaela's. I'm a little behind on grading some FRQs or giving some feedback on FRQs, so I'll catch up today.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, you got it. See you in a little bit.